Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Wednesday, April 24th. We got a 7-game slate, so a little bit smaller than the last couple days, but it still looks extremely fun to play, and we will be breaking into that. We're going to start off by going through the perfect lineups and the winning lineups from yesterday's contest. And there's some crazy winning lineups we got there today. Then we'll go into the pitchers to consider, the high-owned guys, some pivots that I like, followed by some stacks to consider. The higher projected, the higher owned, the value stacks, the highest ceiling ones. We'll get into it all. Now, before we go into that, please like, comment, and subscribe to the video, as well as come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all. One low price. Come join us. Let's do it. Now, let's get into this slate. All right. As always, head over to good old FanDuel and perfect lineup. And we're going to have to go to yesterday because Arizona's already using those bats. All right. So, our perfect lineup, we got Max Fried, a 3-man Arizona stack. They just went absolutely nuts yesterday, putting up 14 runs. Thus, you needed a big-time stack to get anywhere close to the perfect lineup. What I find very interesting, only 30.7K of salary was used. So you didn't even need to come close to using all your salary to try to get to the perfect lineup yesterday. Now, we're never actually going for the perfect lineup because that is just incredibly hard. And the distance between a perfect lineup and the winning lineup is so far that there's no sense to try for the perfect lineup. Now, if we go to the winning lineup, 258.8. So 80-point difference or so in the winning lineup to the perfect lineup. And the reason I bring that up, the thing that I think is so wild, is between first and second place, 46 points yesterday. Huge difference between first and second. So with that, we can kind of just go over both lineups because I think it's kind of an interesting situation. So winning lineup was Max Fried. Then they had a 2-man Arizona lineup stack, 2-man Atlanta, 2-man Minnesota, then Baltimore one off, and Cubs one off. 248, just a crazy high number. And that beat 212.6 that had Stroman. It had a 4-man Arizona stack and a 4-man Cubs stack. Very contrarian lineup, but just didn't quite get it down because Slim Brian pretty much hit the nuts. Which is crazy to say because it's still like 80 points off the perfect lineup. But congrats to Slim Brian. Way to just absolutely nail those 2-man stacks. And then congrats to Albert. Your lineup was extremely good. You just needed to pivot off Stroman a little bit, get a little bit more, a little different. But both of them very, very good lineups. And let's take a look at old DK now. All right. So on DK, we had Max Fried, we have Eric Fetty, and then 2-man Royal stack, and then nothing else. Crazy there's not another Arizona guy in here when they go up with 14 runs. Once again, didn't use all the salary. 259.15 was the perfect lineup score, while the winning lineup score, 180.25 to Danny Ohms. Congrats, Danny. And then his lineup, a lot different. We went Logan Webb. We went Max Fried. So 2 pitchers that do have very high upside because of their efficiency, not because of their K rate. These guys can both work deep into games. Fried had a complete game shutout in like 92 pitches. So that is why those two guys got there. So congrats to them. Way to pitch. And then he had a 5-man Arizona stack, 2-man Cubs with a 1-off Atlanta once again. I think this is the third day in a row. 5-2-1 lineup construction. Got it done. Did it again. Super contrarian Arizona stack. Highest owned Arizona player. 4.7%. Just wild, and highest owned, outside of pitchers, highest owned player, 14%. And Bellinger got hurt, and he wasn't even the highest scoring player on his team. So there's absolutely room for upside here, and he still won by, 3.4 or so. So let's now get into the slate today. All right. Normal 4 o'clock start time. And let's get over to our pitchers. So highest owned pitcher, we got Garrett Crochet. He's the lefty going against Minnesota, 31% owned. 8.6K for his upside. That's not too much, even though he is, a young starting pitcher. The one big thing I want to talk about here is I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he's not what he was those first 2 starts. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, but he has a 3.9 FIP versus a 5.61 ERA. This does tell me that he has been getting a little unlucky in that he's been better than he has shown the last couple outings. He had a very rough outing last time, giving up 7 earned runs in 3 innings to Philadelphia, but that's really his one, real poor outing. He does have a 32.7% K rate this so far this season. So I'm absolutely intrigued by going to him. There is, a little bit of worry. 34.9% hard contact, decent amount of barrel balls, high amount of line drives and fly balls. But, this Minnesota offense isn't that great versus lefties. 299 WOBA. Striking out 22%. One thing I do have to bring up is that he is averaging 106% less fantasy points away, but he's only had 2 starts away. One was against Philly, which was just that huge blow-up game. The other one was versus KC, where he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings. You got to note that he has been worse away. However, such a small sample size, I wouldn't lead too much into that at this point. I don't mind going to him at high ownership whatsoever. The splits against Minnesota definitely favor him, and 29.3% combined K rate. Next, we got Ronaldo Lopez. He's been insanely good for the Braves so far this year, and it looks like stretch him out to a starter was the right move. He's up to 94 pitchers as starter, so he's pretty much fully stretched out, working deep into games. 2.24 FIP over his last 5 starts with a 26% K rate. He has been absolutely amazing, and it probably doesn't stop against this Marlins offense that has a 285 WOBA and a 126 ISO. The one thing here is, they don't strike out a ton versus righties. He doesn't have huge dominant K stuff, but it's a nice spot. I don't mind if I get some. Do I think he should be the chalkiest pitcher on the slate? Nah. Or second chalkiest? Probably not, but don't mind having a little bit of him. If I do, that's fine. Next, we got Spencer Arrighetti. No way he should be the 3rd highest owned guy. He has been getting very unlucky, 11.57 ERA to a 3.47 FIP. So he's definitely been getting unlucky, but a lot of fly balls. Also, I do have to note the weather is totally different for this game in Chicago. It is cool and the winds are blowing in versus blowing out like they were yesterday. That ball will not fly as easy as it did in the last couple of games. It is better for a pitcher now than it is for a hitter weather-wise. I don't mind Arrighetti. His combined K rate of 22% or 21.8 at 6.5K is fine, but I just don't think the upside's there. This is a guy that has not shown any efficiency. Worked 3 innings and worked 4 innings, and combined right around 83 pitches per game. So he really needs to somehow luck into efficiency to get 5-6 innings to really be able to give you that upside. And I just don't know if it totally happens. And at high ownership, I don't know if I really want to take that risk. Next, we got Clark Schmidt. It is versus the Oakland Athletics, so you got to be a little interested. 26% K rate, low WOBA. They do have a decent ISO, and they have hit him well. 26 plate attempts, hitting 391 off him. But big thing here is upside. Now, we have him at only a 24.8% K rate. Combined K rate is 27%, which is very solid. The thing that's so crazy to me about it is the sportsbooks lines have him at 7.5 Ks. Now, they favor the under because it's minus like 160 or 170 now, but that is a very, very high line for a guy that doesn't have huge dominant strikeout stuff, but it is something to note and interesting for DFS, especially when he's not one of the highest owned pitchers. So I'm absolutely willing to take some chances in picking Clark Schmidt with that insanely high strikeout line. We get points from strikeouts, so I'm definitely willing to go there. Next, we got Joe Ryan. Now, he's probably my favorite pitcher in the slate, and I'm surprised he's not higher owned. Look, I know Pablo Lopez didn't have a great outing last night, but Joe Ryan, better at home, 40% more fantasy points at home, 31% K rate in 20 starts. Over his last 5, 2.73 FIP. He's been very good. He started last season really good too, and it looks like he's doing that again. He has a super high upside, 26.4% combined K rate. White Sox are terrible. I don't mind going there. The only downside with him is the BVP data. 44 plate attempts. They're hitting 295 off him with 2 home runs, 227 ISO. He has struggled a little bit versus him, but both outings last year, 25, 26 points. If you're going to, give me 26 or 25 out of him at 10.4K, I might just take it and move on to my second pitcher. So, next, we got Yarel Rodriguez. I couldn't talk for a second. Now, this is a very, very curious case for me. Only 83 pitches last game, 68 the game before that. So they're obviously stretching him out a little bit. The big thing here that I need to bring up, 40.6% K rate. Just absolutely insane. Probably a very, very unsustainable number. But his FIP is worse than his ERA, so he's likely been getting a little bit lucky. Maybe been getting bailed out a little bit by his strikeout stuff. And he's allowing way too many fly balls with 50% fly balls and 37.5% hard contact. But it's an interesting spot. You got a guy at 8K that has a 29.8% K rate. However, as I talked about Spencer Arrighetti, totally inefficient, At least he has that 40% K rate to fall back on to at least, give you a little upside there. It is a very, very interesting case. Now, KC has been very good versus righties. Could be a tough outing for him, but you got to kind of consider him with that type of K rate. Now, am I going to go there? Maybe a very little, but it is an interesting spot. Couple guys that I will mention lower. I don't love Jamison Taillon. Houston has just crushed him, and he only went 73 pitches last game, so I'm kind of out on that. John Gray, big time upside. His K rate is very high this game. I think it was like 6.5 or something like that. So I think he needs to at least draw a little bit of interest with Seattle striking out at 24% versus righties, and he's been good versus them in the past. 153 average and a 28% K rate. It's definitely interesting, something to note when he is this low owned. Then Bryce Miller, I know, is going to draw some attention. He's going super low owned. He's had 3 very good outings. The thing that I need to bring up is how much worse he is versus lefties, and Texas has some very, very good lefties. So that worries me a little bit with going Bryce Miller. Plus, he's been getting a little lucky. 4.35 FIP with a 2.89 ERA. So that'll do it for the pitching. And let's move on to FanDuel's pitching and try and wrap that up a little quicker, as I've talked a lot this show so far. Joe Ryan, highest owned on FanDuel, with Clark Schmidt right there. Look, I talked about both these guys. I'm absolutely considering both of them. I do think Clark Schmidt may be a little bit high priced, given, his combined K rate numbers, his strikeout stuff, but it is a very good matchup, so I get why you want to go there. Spencer is extremely cheap, so that's at least of interest, but very little shot of him going 6 innings, which just kills some upside for pitching on FanDuel. I think Garrett Crochet has to be in consideration with his upside. The fact that he could get double-digit Ks and work deep into a game, and it's the lowest game total on the slate, is definitely intriguing. Lopez has been very good. 10.4K, though, might be a bit too expensive. And I think you got to consider John Gray. 7.5K. They're favorites. And big-time strikeout stuff, he can get, those 7-8Ks or something. And at 7,500, it's at least intriguing. Yarel Rodriguez. Man, I can't say that name. You got to consider, too, at 7.8K, 40% owned, or 40% K rate. If he is able to go 5-6 innings and, still have that kind of K rate, he's interesting. It's not the best matchup in the world, but it might take some swings. And that'll do it for today. For pitching, let's get into stacks. All right, so overview of the slate. We do have the Colorado slate. 2-point higher game total than any other spot is absolutely something to of note, and with that, ownership's definitely going to go to that game. Now, let's start with the highest ceiling stacks. We got Houston popping up against Tyone. I don't love it. I don't mind it. It is a low game total of 7.5, and Houston can get to anybody. The big thing here is their success against Tyone in the past, and that is probably why it's popping up. Pena, 4 for 5 versus him. Yared Diaz hasn't faced him. Kyle Tucker, he's hitting .333 with a home run in 10 plate attempts. Alvarez, 1 home run in 11 plate attempts, hitting .333. They have just had very good success. Altuve, .364 in 13 plate attempts, 184 ISO. The team has just had very good success, and thus they are popping for us. It's at least of note. Next, we got KC. Like I said, Rodriguez has definitely been getting a little bit lucky. The FIP is way higher than his ERA. He has a lot of hard hit balls and a lot of fly balls. It is 70 degrees in KC, so the ball's going to travel a little bit. Having some KC at super low ownership is at least of interest. Atlanta versus Sixto Sanchez, who is going to only be an opener and then go into the bullpen, is obviously of interest as well. And I mean, that team can hit, especially lately. The back end of the lineup has been better than the front end. So absolutely intrigued with some ATL. And let's go over to highest ownership. All right, no surprise here. San Diego is our highest owned stack of the day. Now, 95%, you're talking about, just under 20% per guy. Ty Block is not a great pitcher. 6.39 FIP over his last 5, 5.55 over his last 20. Giving up, over 2 points per plate attempt. Don't mind going to the Padres in this spot. It'll be interesting to see if Manny Machado is back from the paternity list or not. If he is, the offense as a whole definitely looks much better. I don't mind going here. They can definitely get it, especially in Colorado. I just would be looking to go for one of the a little bit less owned stacks versus, the highest owned one. Toronto, Colorado popping up a little bit as well. I do have to say Alec Marsh has been pretty good lately. 3.04 FIP over his last 5 starts. I don't think that's who he is, but he has been very, very good over the short term. So it is at least of note to mention. He is 4.83 over his last 20. So there could be some regression back to that number coming, which makes Toronto at least of interest. Colorado popping up also. I said this last time against for Matt Waldron. Look, he's a knuckleball pitcher. If that pitch isn't working, it's batting practice. And you add in Colorado, and having some Colorado stacks absolutely makes sense. Now, when Waldron is on, it's pretty hard to hit him. He's a decent pitcher, but there's just going to be such a wide difference between when he's good and when he's not. And taking some shots with Colorado absolutely makes sense, especially at some lower ownership. And they're plus 135 against San Diego. It's not like they're like huge underdogs. They could absolutely be the best stack on the slate. Now let's get into the highest projected, with it being a Colorado slate. Likely Colorado's popping up here, San Diego or Colorado, and it's actually Atlanta Braves versus Sixto Sanchez that's popping up as the highest projected lineup. Now, that one, the projection does barely beat the highest Padres one and costs, $4.5K more, but it is at least of note that the Braves are popping up like that, and there are several Braves lineups in this, but more so, Padres are all over the place. Texas has some stuff, a lot of lefties in that Texas lineup. And Houston's popping up a little bit as well. Kind of surprised there's not a little more Colorado. It is something to definitely consider. Now let's go to the highest value stacks. Value-wise, we're looking at Oakland versus Clark Schmidt. It is a little bit of hitting weather in New York today, although it is still cool. But look, Clark Schmidt can get hit. It's not like he's an ace, so I don't mind going there a little bit. White Sox versus Joe Ryan. Look, we saw them get to Pablo Lopez yesterday. I do like Joe Ryan quite a bit as a pitcher, but anybody can have their day. The one thing here is you don't have the leverage that you do yesterday. Joe Ryan isn't as high owned as Pablo Lopez was yesterday. Highest ceiling we went over already. Let's go to the FIP now. And the best or worst FIP, Ty Block. Good old San Diego Padres getting one of the better matchups on the slate. Now, implied run total, Padres 5.9, Braves 5.1, Colorado 5.1, Oakland 4.9. I got to bring this up about Boyle. Look, his FIP has been decent. 4.1 over his last 5. The issue with him is he is going to allow a ton of free bases to a team that will take those free bases. Now, his hard contact rate is super low. Exit velocity is pretty low. The Oakland bullpen has been good up to this point. So while I don't mind some Yankee stacks, it could be difficult for them to really put up 7-8 runs. Now, I think most likely outcome is Yankees win like 4-2 or 4-3 or 5-3, something like that. So having some Yankees is okay, but I don't love the full stacks against Joe Boyle. The reason being, I think how they get there is I think it's going to be largely walks, and then one home run gets hit. So you might only need one or two guys from the Yankees to really get there. Texas with Bryce Miller is a similar situation. He is a very, very good pitcher to righties, but gives it up to lefties. So I think there's some interest in having, smaller stacks with lefties and a righty or two to make it happen. But Seattle's bullpen is very good also. So if you get Bryce Miller out of the game early, it might be hard to really continue scoring versus them. Houston, or the Cubs, are an interesting one, but winds are blowing in. It's like 40 degrees. Going to be a little harder to get that offense going, but you got to consider them. Rodriguez and KC. Toronto bullpen's not been good. He's giving up hard contact, high exit velocity. It's at least of interest there. Outside of that, the implied totals are pretty low, and I don't really love going to them, but I will if there's some leverage and guys popping below that. So that'll do it for us today. Looks like a fun slate. Some definite ways to go. I hope you guys have the best of luck tonight. I have been, close, continually getting lineups into the top 100 or top 50. Just haven't had that one that really break through to give me, a top 3 chance yet. But I know it's coming. Hope it's coming for you guys too. Let's go. Good luck. Adios.